What's up, everybody? Welcome in to another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. Here tonight, we're going to be talking about the ACC, as we have been a lot lately. And it is not just because of the Clemson and Florida State dueling lawsuits, but it is also because of what ESPN may do coming up in February, which, of course, the deadline. They have to decide whether or not to push through with the ACC contract past 2027 and on into 2036. We know, thanks to Florida State, that there is a look-in provision on that, and that is an important deadline coming up. And new financial numbers that came out actually in Variety, of all places. So don't ever say that I'm not keeping you up to date on Hollywood here on this channel. We're going to read a little bit from Variety today on the show. Honestly, it'll culture everybody, okay? We're college football fans, and a lot of us, being that this is a show originating from Big 12 country, we're in Truck Stopville, USA, as the Pac-12 like to remind us all of. So we could use a little culturing. So let's get up to date on what's going on in Hollywood with Variety. But in all seriousness, there is a tie-in to all of this and what may happen with the ACC, the future of the ACC and ESPN. And I'll be honest, I'm really feeling the ACC stuff right now because I had a great chat earlier today with Doug Rohan, who is an Atlanta-based attorney, but a Florida State grad who is extremely well-versed in everything that is going on with the Florida State and Clemson cases. And we had an awesome chat. It's going to be coming out on the channel over the next couple of days in two parts. I'm excited for you guys to watch that because he was excellent at breaking down everything and provided some really valuable insight, including how one sentence could really wreck the ACC and very much hurt their legal cases here. And how long is he expecting it to take before there is a resolution? What is the most likely resolution? We covered all of those things in the chat. So really looking forward to you guys getting a chance to see that, but that will be coming up later on this week on the channel. We also have a new huge story from Ross Dellinger. And boy, I tell you what, every one of these stories now is getting really tough to just break down and decipher because, of course, this surrounds the House lawsuit and a potential settlement and what it is going to mean in terms of revenue sharing and how much schools are going to have to pay, how that's all going to work. There's even been an adjustment to really one of my biggest talking points here, which is that once revenue sharing does come, it's going to be a tough thing for Big 12 and ACC schools to be able to do to keep pace with the Big 10 and the SEC, because it will be such a large sum of money and they're going to have so much more money, extra money lying around to throw to this, but it may not work quite as directly as I thought. It still, though, will be a massive expense for the schools. Title IX could be in play here in terms of how all of that goes and how it works out. There's just a lot. There's a lot, and these are heavy stories. So I'll try to break it down for you the best that I can in reading what we get from Ross Dellinger. But really, I would say, and I almost went with this as the lead of the video, it would boil down to the question, can Big 12 and ACC schools afford to pay athletes $25 million a year? That's really what we could be looking at here, because they have now some numbers, like a formula, statistical breakdown of what the anticipated expense is going to be. And that anticipated expense is about 22% of all the revenue comes in. And Ross Dellinger came up with the $85 million or so is the average there. You do that math, it could be all the way up to $25 million and increasing as time goes on too. So there's a lot here. There's just going to be a ton of change in the next 12 to 18 months in college athletics. And unfortunately, look, the realignment stuff, as we have followed this, I don't know, to me, that stuff is at least like a little bit more fun, because there's the breakdown of, hey, how fun would it be to have X school in Y conference? I mean, I'm seeing it. And by the way, hello, Kyle. Hello, old Texas Tech man, Chief fan, Ron, Kyle. I said Kyle twice. Sorry, I was just reading up there. But I'm already seeing it in the comments there. Big 12 ACC merger, like that stuff is fun. People, that can be kind of fun, even if it is like this twisted, demented system that's going to take down college football and college athletics from the inside. because TV totally took everything over. It still is more fun to rearrange those than just be like, well, I mean, what about how do you calculate the revenue and ticket revenue and TV revenue for these conferences and what this number is going to be and what do the players want and negotiations between this? It's all just convoluted and kind of it's more boring, but it's also just as consequential, if not more. And I think we still don't understand fully what the impact is going to be out of all of this. But it really is. I feel like it probably should be getting more run from people. I'll be honest, and maybe I can talk more about this when I get there. I feel like it should be getting more run from people because this will be like what truly decides what schools are going to keep pushing forward playing big boy college athletics. It's going to be, will you be able to afford whatever the number is going to be that comes out of the House lawsuit settlement? And it's so in some ways it's going to separate the men from the boys. Anyway, we will dive into all of that. I've got other stuff too. We need to start making some YouTube shorts. I've been thinking about that a lot more lately here, just thinking out loud for you guys, giving you an update on what's going on the channel because, the TikTok may be going away. So YouTube shorts could become more prominent. And we've got some stuff like, Joel Klatt really stuck his nose out for Utah. So the Utah is going to be the toughest place to play in the Big 12 and that they'll win the Big 12 and make the college football playoff this year. We got Big 12 Heisman odds. Avery Johnson, Noah Fafita were tied for the best Heisman odds in the Big 12. I don't know if we'll get to that on the show here, but those may be good YouTube shorts sort of things for me to start putting out there. So I will make an attempt to start doing that stuff for you guys too. Trying to up the content game a little bit here. But look, you guys who have been here before, you know how the drill, you know how this goes. You can be a part of the show tonight if you would like to be. You can do so by clicking the $ below the chat box. In order to do that, if you click the $, it will attach a donation to your chat. Pins in a separate column for me and will guarantee that you get on the show. It is a way to raise your questions, get your opinion out there to me, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis here on this channel. So I much appreciate all of you guys who do that. Seriously, could not do it without all of your support. And I genuinely do appreciate all of you who do support in that way. We have a Venmo comment to start out with. And this is the reminder that if you are not watching this live, you're catching up after the fact. You can also contribute to the channel on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo in order to do so. And if you leave a donation there, leave a question or comment with it, and I will get to your question to start the show. Now, I should have done this, Daniel, and I appreciate you, Daniel, for popping in, supporting the channel there. I'm going to have to go pull up the video that Daniel talked about here because Daniel, it was the last live show. Daniel said to go pick out his comment. Go. I've got to go find Daniel's comment from the video, and we've got 45 of them here. So here we go. Boy, that was pretty easy, Daniel. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Read more. There we go. Okay, so Daniel supported the channel on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. Thank you so much, Daniel. Appreciate you, my man. And Daniel's comment is, he says, hey, John, big fan of the YouTube channel. Sorry for the long message, and don't feel the need to mention this message in your next video. Well, I'm going to, because you wound up donating here. He says, thank you for an objective analysis of Big 12 news, unlike a lot of YouTube videos floating around online. One, I'm a Cyclone fan, and I'd like for you to take every opportunity to build hype about the 2025 game in Dublin, Ireland. Hey, it's going to be cool, man. I mean, I know I saw some of the national reaction to it right away when people tweeted out the game like, oh, the college football season doesn't really start, blah, blah, blah. You'd rather watch. I mean, that's a better game to watch than Notre Dame and Navy or Nebraska and Northwestern. Like, come on. Yeah, it was really fun to watch Nebraska go overseas to fart away a game like they basically always do now. But Iowa State, K-State will be a much better game than that to have over there. And especially after, I mean, we'll see what happens with Iowa State and K-State this year. But I didn't sort of kick off things in week 0. That's a pretty good game out there. I think just for fans in general to watch, that will be good. And for the Big 12, that will be really nice to have that center stage at the beginning of the year. Everybody watching that game. So hopefully they can put on a good show. 2, This is still Daniel's comment. He says, you were a little hard on Clemson and their lawsuits with the ACC recently. I'm not a lawyer or Clemson fan for that matter. Their recent court filings did make sense to me, though. In one media cycle, they acknowledged that the ACC's agreement with ESPN had redacted parts that even the universities do not have access to. They are suing the ACC to see the redacted portions of the agreement and at the same time suing for making Clemson less marketable to other conferences because their home games are supposedly owned by the ACC until 2036. Maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but what's in the redacted portions of the grant of rights? Is the ACC not acknowledging a way out of their grant of rights? In any case, keep up the great content, John. Hey, I appreciate it, Daniel. I can actually tell you, I will tell you, Daniel, I'm not doing this just to push the other content on the channel, but you definitely need to watch the videos coming out Thursday and Friday with Doug Rohan from Rohan Law in Atlanta, Georgia, because he did a great job of breaking down, basically like answering your questions there. And I kind of asked him the same thing. I said, look, Clemson asking for damages, that seems a little silly, isn't it? And that's kind of like just trying to put something else out there to get them to settle. And he did say, like, he said there's actually some merit to it, but that more or less it is a scare tactic. And when thinking about having to negotiate at a certain point with the ACC here, they don't want it to be like, hey, the floor is $0 that you would have to pay ACC. They're just trying to lower that floor where like the worst case scenario for the ACC would be having to pay damages to, so that it could be in some ways a negotiating tactic there. My thing was just like, look, the grant of rights, I mean, you sign it because that's the entire point of it, is that you're locking up your grant of rights. But when we get into the legalese of it, that's the entire title. I'll go ahead and just tell you, the second video that's going to come out is about how one sentence could really, really hurt the ACC's entire case in all of this. And they kind of screwed up when they copied the Big 12's grant of rights that was supposed to be ironclad. And there was the Dennis Dodd article from CBS Sports a year ago that said that. One sentence actually sort of messed that up where they pinpointed it to just ESPN. Well, what could happen here in February? ESPN could bail on the ACC. And if that were to happen, then all of a sudden the grant of rights, Clemson could viably make the argument, hey, that doesn't actually matter anymore because it's not going to be ESPN. So Doug does a much better job of breaking down how exactly that works, but one sentence there actually could be a real hang-up. But if ESPN is still the primary media partner, I still fail to see how they could reasonably say, like, we should be able to get out of this. And okay, so the grant of rights is lowering their value as a football school. I don't know. Look, again, I'm not a legal mind, but to me, I say, well, you signed the thing. I don't know. People make bad decisions and sign bad contracts all the time. That happens, but you did sign it. So I'm not trying to be hard on Clemson. I mean, I'm rooting for them. As a Big 12 fan, like I hope Clemson and Florida State get out of the ACC. I do. So I hope that it works, but some of this stuff does come across a little bit funny to me. There's an entertaining aspect of some of the things that are coming out in the Florida State and Clemson cases and the way they are going about it. I guess I would just say that. So I don't mean to be like hard on Clemson. I would love it for entertainment value and content value. I would love Florida State and Clemson to get as down and dirty as possible. We already went to John Swofford and nepotism claims. Give me more of that. Like, who else do we have dirt on? Like, Clemson, go find some dirt on somebody. Preferably Jim Phillips. Jim Phillips has driven me crazy throughout this entire process by slowing down the playoff and basically just pushing Greg Sankey to the edge and turning him even more into the evil villain that he is right now. If they could dig up some dirt on Jim Phillips, I would love it. So I'm here for it if Clemson wants to continue pursuing this route. So just don't want you to get the wrong idea there, Daniel, on where I'm going with that. But anyway, Daniel, my man, thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you checking out the channel, supporting the channel. And if anybody else who is not catching this live wants to be like Daniel, you can go to Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo to contribute to the channel there. And I will kick off the next show with your comment. All right, we're going to go to David really quick. David, appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. David says, hey, Big John, the rev share thing has serious consequences. FYI, I agree. Yes, revenue share thing does have very serious consequences. I'm still I'm still sort of like, I thought I had a better grasp on it than I did, at least in terms of how the money portion would be paid out. I was thinking like, hey, the schools will be able to pay the players directly and they would have like total freedom to pay whatever. It actually sounds like there's a chance the players could basically be like taking a pay cut here, because right now the system, there's just no cap on anything, and Title IX could come into play to curb some of the payments being made to players, which I just don't think we know how exactly it's going to break down, and we won't for 12 to 16 months. But it's a huge story with huge ramifications, especially for a lot of the people that watch this channel, because we are pretty heavy, like Big 12 heavy, and those are the schools that are going to be affected most by what happens with this revenue sharing. So again, David is right. Like, I would pay a lot of attention to this. It doesn't seem to be the sexiest thing. It doesn't seem to be the thing that drives the most views on the channel. When I look at like what is generating the most traction and interaction from people, but I think that's foolish is the wrong. I don't know that it's like you guys are being actively foolish, that the viewer is being actively foolish. I just think it's such a big, complex, boring, tough to break down topic that it doesn't draw as much attention as it should. So David says, I agree. Huskers sucked in Ireland. Clones and Cats will be better. Well, appreciate that, David. David, the good news is you have a different coach, right? That was 2 years ago, right? Am I making that up? 2 years ago, that was Frost, right? Frost went over to Ireland and lost. You got a different coach, so that's it's going to make things much, much better. I would anticipate. Look, much as I hate it, I mean, Matt Rule is seemingly a more competent coach than Scott Frost was. And again, Dylan Raiola, right? I don't need to say anything else for a Nebraska fan to get them excited right now. So, David, appreciate you. Thank you. And always love to see your support of the channel. The Yates 27. What's up, the Yates 27? The Yates 27 just checking in, says sup. Okay, you're going to go back and watch from the start. Peace. All right. Peace. Yates 27. Thank you for being here, and thank you for checking in with your support of the channel. I see a comment in there about dragging the legal process out beyond February. Again, watch the videos coming up with Doug Rohan. He has a pretty good opinion about a timeline on this, which I thought was very, very good as well. So again, click the $ below the chat box. If you want to be a part of the show, you can submit a super chat that way, attach a donation there. All right. So on the ACC in February, speaking of that last comment that I just made, I want to start with, maybe I can share my screen here and show you this tweet from Matt Baker, the Tampa Bay Times. Had me thinking about this, and if this is going to be a motivation for ESPN to potentially drop out of their deal with the ACC in 2027, which is that February date that they would have to decide by. Share screen, Matt Baker. Let's go. Here you go. All right. So Brian Fisher, another college football reporter, he tweeted ESPN Plus, everybody's favorite, ESPN Plus, right? ESPN Plus lost $65 million last quarter. I mean, that's crazy. That seems like a lot of money, right? Like $65 million in a quarter. ESPN Plus lost $65 million last quarter. With several rights coming up, one wonders how much that will weigh on their renewal. Yes, one does have to wonder. And Matt Baker, who covers college athletics in the state of Florida and Tampa Bay, obviously entrenched in everything that's going on with the ACC, says, including a potential February decision involving a certain conference. And Matt, my guy, this is why he gets paid the big bucks. This is why he's a big J journo with a big old J. It's because look at the ACC capitalized at the end there. A certain conference, ACC. I'm a man who loves a good pun. I appreciate a good pun. I've got to give a shout out to Matt for that. That is excellent work. It's great tweeting. And it's a great point. I mean, 65 million lost last quarter. Now, a lot of the rest of this Variety article, which let me hop back into that because I did take some of the rest of it. Here's the little blurb. It says Disney's entertainment streaming segment, anchored by Disney Plus, scored its first profitable quarter. So overall, entertainment streaming segment of Disney scored a profitable quarter, helping to partially offset continued weakness in the media conglomerate's linear TV business for the first 3 months of 2024. To be sure, Disney's overall streaming business was still in the red for the quarter when factoring in ESPN Plus, which had an operating loss of $65 million. So Boy, Disney Plus, man, you guys must be watching Disney Plus. I can't say that I have watched Disney Plus a single time in my life. Not my thing. People are watching the Disney Plus because that's pulling the dead weight of ESPN Plus and the $65 million that it was in the red. The company reiterated its expectation that its combined streaming operations will achieve profitability in the September 2024 quarter. That's really the only blurb that concerned the ESPN Plus part in the Variety article. Again, this is from Variety. I'm giving you all the Hollywood coverage of college athletics that you could possibly ask for here on this channel. But that ain't great. And like everything that we have heard regarding where TV rights are going, remember all the way back to the Pac-12 situation, is that it's not as much money around there as there was. Like there was kind of this gold rush to pay as much as possible for any kind of live sports ever. And it felt like always an inevitability that number was just going to keep going up and going up at a really rapid rate and just be great. Tons of money for everybody in college athletics to pull in. And then George Kliavkoff found out the hard way that that's starting to curtail. It's curbed off. We're not doing that full send nearly as much anymore. So that has started to change, and that's already been in motion. And now, if ESPN Plus is going to be losing that much money, what is ESPN going to be thinking about the viability of sports streaming for, a non-premium product, for a product that is not the SEC, it's the ACC. Meanwhile, you've got ESPN caught up in having to potentially show unredacted documents in court about their agreement with the ACC that they really don't want out there. Another thing that Doug Rohan addressed in the videos coming up, where he kind of said, not necessarily trade secrets so much as just like, hey, if other people that we're negotiating with can see the final agreements here, that can give them a competitive advantage. It can give Fox a competitive advantage. We don't want them to be able to see those things. That's already happening in the world of the lawsuits that are going on with FSU and Clemson and the ACC. ESPN may be looking around like this. I mean, this thing seems to be headed downhill anyway. Like this conference is not long for this world. We're losing money like crazy on ESPN Plus, and just in general, we don't feel like this is a super strong market to continue paying a ton of money for live sports, even if it's kind of a sweetheart deal for ESPN with the ACC. Could all of these factors start to put enough pressure on them that they say, well, this just isn't worth it? Like, I would assume they would say this is kind of why we have this look in anyway for 2027. Let's just whack it, man. Let's just whack it. They've got, what are we, February, March, April, May, 9 months. They've got 9 months to decide. So, I mean, a lot could still happen between now and then, obviously. But I think it's at least a pretty relevant data point to submit in here, that ESPN Plus is like hemorrhaging money right now. That was definitely something I filed under the category of like, let me keep my eye on that and see where exactly that's going to be going, because that's not nothing. That's not nothing. I did poll. I forgot I had this too. I polled an On3 article in March that Andy Staples wrote, where he dove into this a little bit. He said, Florida State revealed in its lawsuit against the ACC that in 2027, ESPN has an option of not continuing its deal with the ACC. Financially, it seems to make sense for ESPN to opt into the deal, as it is viewed as favorable compared to other conferences. However, ESPN could still opt to decline the option and leave the ACC without a media rights contract. With that said, if Florida State is able to find a way out of the grant of rights and other schools also leave, it could impact ESPN's decision. Staples said, now, obviously, if the membership of the league changes, like if Florida State were to find a way to buy itself out, then maybe that makes it different. But I don't know that ESPN just says, no, we're done with this thing. Again, remember, this was before we saw the ESPN Plus number. Quote, I think these next few months are going to be very interesting in the ACC Florida State tug of war, because as we get close to that February deadline, you're probably going to see the rhetoric ratchet up on both sides. And that is something that Doug Rohan said. It will continue to put more and more pressure the further along we get, and put more pressure on the sides to settle, come up with something to figure out before these important dates start to approach. He threw out other dates too. like in August. It's August 15th. That is the deadline for a school to announce that they would be leaving the ACC next year. So if Florida State were going to try and leave in a year, they would have to get that public by August 15th. So that is a date that is out there. So keep your eye on it. Keep your eye on it, right? I'm not going to steal Greg's line of my guy, Greg Flugar, and his channel, which you should follow, Peek Around the Corner. If you're a college football fan, if you're into realignment, definitely go check him out. I'm not going to steal his line of keep your head on a swivel, but I would just say keep your eyes peeled on that one. That is one that I file away. We did have a bit of an update. I will give you this real quick. We had a bit of an update on the ACC's case with Clemson. Nothing unexpected. This is an update from Matt Baker of the Tampa Bay Times. The ACC has filed a motion to dismiss Clemson's lawsuit against the league. Look, obviously, yeah, the ACC would love to just ditch Clemson's lawsuit. They've filed a motion to dismiss it. It's two primary arguments. The conference is not under the personal jurisdiction of the South Carolina court, and there's another suit pending elsewhere. So, yeah, they're saying like, hey, look, there's another suit pending elsewhere. We filed our suit, and also this is another person. It shouldn't be in South Carolina. This is in North Carolina because that's where the ACC is. That's where our case is. We don't need this. Here's a quote from it. Put simply, the ACC is not at home in South Carolina, the league's motion said. Instead, the ACC is based in North Carolina with North Carolina contracts and a pending lawsuit against Florida State in North Carolina. The conference also makes an issue on timing. Why Clemson sued the league when it did. The ACC notes it was filed after briefing on issues in ACC versus Clemson was complete and on the eve of oral argument in that case. The conference repeats a key concern. What if a North Carolina court rules one way? Well, this is funny. Let's think about this one. I hadn't even begun to think about this. Maybe a lot of you had. What if a North Carolina court rules one way and a South Carolina court rules another? We've got 4 cases in 3 states. Like, what if some of these go different, conflicting ways? What happens then? That's an argument for centering them all in North Carolina. So that's what the ACC is trying to say. Like, look, just move these all to North Carolina because we can't have differing opinions and rulings in these cases in different states. What are we going to do then? That'll be a mess. If multiple suits continue in multiple venues and ultimately disagree, the league's motion said, the parties will have achieved nothing more than chaos. Isn't that kind of the goal here for Clemson and Florida State? They're trying to achieve chaos. That feels in a lot of ways like it is the ultimate goal of a lot of this, but fair point. Also Tuesday, Leon County Judge John C. Cooper has filed his ruling from the first hearing between Florida State and the ACC. Consider it the formal document backing up his initial ruling, which rejected the ACC's motion to pause the case in Tallahassee. The ACC wanted the Tallahassee case paused while its complaint proceeded in North Carolina. Cooper rejected that, saying it was a virtual classic case of anticipatory filing, which it was. They filed a day before Florida State filed because they saw it coming. Those types of actions are often viewed as forum shopping, which is frowned upon. Forum shopping, a word that I have learned thanks to Florida State and Clemson here. And if you've been watching the channel, you have learned that as well. So keeping you up to date on Hollywood. I am preparing you for the bar. I don't know what else you could possibly ask for out of a YouTube channel. So please do make sure that you are subscribed if you have not already. Cooper the judge also wrote that there were significant questions about sovereign immunity as it relates to Florida State. Cooper is expected to file another order from the second hearing last month when he dismissed FSU's case against the ACC while allowing the Seminoles to refile it. Okay. Kind of boring. But a couple of updates there and what's going on with Florida State, Clemson, and the ACC. Before I dive into this really thick with 2 C's update on what's going on with the NCAA, the House lawsuit, potential revenue sharing, how much money that's going to cost all of these schools, and can Big 12 and ACC schools afford $25 million per year in revenue sharing payouts, if that's what it's going to come down to. I will again remind you, if you want to be a part of the show, you want to get your question or comment on the show, click the $ below the chat box in order to do so. That is how you get your question or comment on. It is a way to voice your opinion, control the content on the show, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you this conference realignment, college football, and college basketball content on a regular basis. So really appreciate all of you guys who do that. Could not do it without your support. It's John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to support the channel that way, if you're not watching live, you can leave a question or comment there with your donation, and I will kick off the next show with it. And hey, totally free way to support the channel if you can just like the video. I would also really, really appreciate it if you did that. Keep the comments coming in the chat. Keep the comments coming underneath the video in the comments section. All of that stuff really helps as well. Oh boy. Justin, bye-bye ACC. Hello, Metro Conference. Justin, appreciate you, man. I feel like Justin always brings the smack talk. Someone needs to step up to Justin because he's the undisputed champ of the chat, of smack talk in the chat. Bye-bye ACC. Hello, Metro Conference. Who's in the Metro? Is that like Manhattan, like the Jaspers? Are they in that conference? Looking up current members. Oh, the Metro Conference had studies into a new super conference in 1990. The study was conducted by Raycom Sports. I didn't know this. Conference would have included members of the Metro, Atlantic 10, and Big East, but it was not clear if the conference would become a football conference. The original study plan also included Penn State, who was then invited to join the Big Ten. Wow. Boston College, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Rutgers, Syracuse, Temple, Virginia Tech, West Virginia in the north, East Carolina, Florida State, Louisville, Memphis, Miami, South Carolina, Southern Miss, Tulane in the south. How about that? Let's get that conference going, man. Let's get that conference. Okay, so that's the Metro. I'm thinking of the Metro Athletic is like where we've got the Jaspers and everything. Well, just taught me something there, Justin. Little conference realignment history. So thank you for that, my friend. Appreciate that. Got to make a note of that. Okay. We will dive in here to this NCAA story. Okay. This is from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. Ramogi Huma, director of the National College Players Association, has an ideal figure in mind for what college athletes deserve from their schools in a revenue sharing concept. 50%, he said. 50%. So we're starting the bidding here in the story with the director of the National College Players Association saying players deserve 50%, 50, not 15. They deserve 50%. He says, look at pro models. Players get about 50%. Anything less than what's fair will continue to be problematic. The numbers matter. Now, that's smart negotiating. You should be doing that. If you're the guy heading the Players Association, you should be starting at that. So I'm not running him down at all. That's a number. Like, I can imagine that number getting to the desk of an athletic director and being like, how the hell are we going to do that? I think that like they would probably fire an analyst just for the hell of it for even seeing that come across their desk as a quote from the guy running the Players Association. As college executives continue negotiations to settle the latest antitrust cases and implement a new athlete compensation model, those inside and outside the college sports industry are left with a bevy of unanswered questions, most notably about money. Under the agreement, will universities share enough with their most valuable athletes, and will they negotiate directly with them in the future? A potential cap to the new athlete revenue sharing concept, 17 to 22 million annually per school, is a fluid figure for good reason. All right, so there's the first number that's introduced here. This could be a cap in the new athlete revenue sharing model, 17 to 22 million dollars annually per school. Later on, we get the $25 million number. First, it's 17 to 22. Either way, it's a lot of money for these athletic departments to have to find a way to pay all of a sudden. But it is fluid, and the deal ever evolving is expected to feature a look-in provision. That would be why it is fluid, a look-in. Which, again, smart negotiating if you're on the player side of this. We know money is just going up, up, up. You guys are about to get more from the college football playoff because that deal that you signed is bigger. We're not dummies. We know that's coming in 2026. We know that your TV contracts continue to balloon at least in the Big Ten and the SEC, and you're going to get more and more and more from that. The cap is 22%. This cap of $17 to $22 million is 22% of an average power conference school revenue stream, mostly from TV money and ticket sales. It's the average of their revenue streams, mostly coming from TV money and ticket sales. Climbing revenues from the SEC and Big Ten TV contracts could push the cap as high as $25 million over the course of any 10-year settlement agreement, some believe. So that's where your $25 million number comes into play. So just stop and think about that. Like Big 12 schools right now, there's a potential. I've heard word of a potential like shortfall in Big 12 athletic departments because of some issue league wide of like $5 to $7 million, and I know that is being treated like a pretty damn big deal. I mean, you take that by 3, that times 3. How are Big 12 and ACC athletic departments going to be able to handle that and foot the bill for that? That seems like a very tall ask, a very tough putt for schools like that to figure it out. So the question then will become, and you're not going to be required to pay all of that. You don't have to. So if Big 12 schools are only paying a portion of that, how much is that going to hurt you? This is where we start to talk about like how this can separate who's doing it big and who's not in the college athletics world. And you worry about the recruiting implications because we know exactly how that works. If you can't pursue the talent because you've got less money, and these schools have so much more money because of their TV contracts, like just inevitably going to be really hard. And if we've still got unlimited transfers for everybody, going to be hard to keep those kids around if you're not paying them enough and you're not paying them as much as your Big Ten or SEC school. This is how, people thought it would be with coaches that Northwestern could go hire Chris Kleiman or Lance Leipold. Stupid. I will continue to reiterate that. Stupid theory from people. But if they can literally pay the players directly more, now you're talking about like they could have a real legit advantage here. Dellinger says the figures ruffle those in the world of athlete advocacy and unionization who believe schools and conferences should be directly bargaining with current players, specifically those in revenue-generating sports of football and men's basketball. The next 12 to 18 months of college athletics stands to be its most transformative in history, a consequential and long-expected step toward professionalism for the power schools. So, the players, people who represent players and are in athlete advocacy, they scoff at hey, what are we doing with $17 to $22 million and a 22% cap when professional sports leagues, it's closer to 50-50. Like, okay, so there's our starting points, I guess, really for like negotiation, right? You've got a calculated 22% and you've got we should get 50% on the player side. So they're pretty damn far off right now in terms of where those numbers would be. But Dellinger does say athletic administrators are grappling with a cost of $25 to $30 million annually per school, as reported in a wide-ranging story last week at Yahoo Sports. Well, the revenue sharing concept, as well as the expansion of scholarships, is permissive. Schools are not required to do either. So again, you wouldn't have to pay all of that money, but it's going to be a matter of if you want to keep up with the Joneses and be playing at the highest level here, you would need to. Universities limiting their athlete distribution risk falling behind in a competitive industry where talent acquisition is rooted in recruiting. Administrators, university boards, and presidential councils are mobilizing with plans to reduce expenses, add operating staff to negotiate athlete contracts, bring collective personnel under their umbrella. I mean, that seems to be very much on the way toward happening based on the recent rulings. And had that actually passed all the way, or was that just suggested? Anyway, we're moving toward that, being able to bring the collectives all in-house. And even mine, here you go. You ready for this? Ready for that big P word? Let's let that sink in for a second. And even mine untapped revenue streams such as private equity or booster loans. Booster loans is something I had not heard about. Getting loans from boosters, booster loans. But private equity, of course, is something that has long been talked about here. I know there were some figures going around on Twitter of people speculating about Florida State getting involved in private equity. Some of their numbers suggesting perhaps that they're already planning for that. And I know Drew Weatherford has been a part of that at Florida State, former quarterback who's now involved in private equity. Dellinger says it's a mad dash to a finish line. Conference commissioners are working to gain consensus to authorize a settlement agreement from their presidential boards, preferably within the month. The earliest implementation of the new model is believed to be fall 2025. All right, man. I mean, think about that. Like we're coming up here on fall 2024. Like that's the next major sports season. And then they're talking about fall 2025 being when like you could see this new model out there. This could be, in other words, I'm putting this out there. And I don't want to be too gloom and doom if you're a Big 12 fan or you're an ACC fan. But if you're not in the group of haves, 2024, 2025 could be the last year where you're not falling behind if you're not paying $25 million a year directly to your athletes. In other words, this could be the last, like at least sort of relatively kind of normal season. I know it's really not because of all the conference realignment and what's happening. But this could be the last go at not being crazy far behind if you can't find an extra $25 million a year as an athletic department. It's possible. And that is, to me, a very sobering thought as somebody who is obviously a Big 12 fan. Dellinger says it's unclear if college leaders plan to negotiate with athletes. In many ways, they're actively negotiating with plaintiff lawyers who represent more than 10,000 athletes as a certified class. And it's even more uncertain if the NCAA's valuable athletes, major football and basketball players, would unite for more cash. Even Stahl and Cavelli, like people on the athlete side of this, acknowledge that major conference athletes, at least financially, are benefiting more than ever in this environment of booster-fueled name, image, and likeness payments and unrestricted player movement. Quote, they have not united as a group, Cavalli said. To unite as a group takes some initiative and action. You need passion, and that has to come from a place of pain. College athletes aren't feeling pain right now. They are free agents every year. They can get $600,000 for playing defensive back by moving from one school to another and getting an apartment and a car. And that is exactly it. That was an interesting piece of this to me. Like, you need athletes right now that potentially here to band together. And like, why are they going to want what if you're the DB that's getting $600,000 to go play in the SEC? Why are you going to want anything to change? Like, dog, keep the status quo. Like, this is great. I can transfer whenever I want. I hold the cards. I've got the power, and there's no cap on what somebody can pay me. Okay, you can pay me whatever it is you want. You can get in a bidding war. Just last week, I know this because K-State was one of the schools in on this, but Cliff Omori, who was a big man, highly sought after big man in the portal, he wound up choosing Alabama. North Carolina got involved late in the process. Joe Tipton tweeted out, someone offered this kid $2 million late in the process. It was North Carolina. North Carolina decided to offer $2 million there to a kid. Like, this is a great system as it's currently set up for the athlete. You've got everything tilted against them because there's no guardrails on anything. And they can transfer whenever they want. They can make as much money as they want. So that's a tough part of this. How are you going to get them to come to a negotiating table and try to negotiate something like this? If so many of them are going to be really happy with the way it is now. Dellinger says a revenue sharing model may come with more structure and regulation. Two things that would work against what I was just talking about the current situation in college athletics. More structure and regulation, binding player contracts, a limitation of third-party / collective payments, and for some football and basketball players, a reduction in their NIL-related salaries to possibly satisfy Title IX, the federal law requiring universities to provide equal opportunity for women as for men. So if you're going to take that money, the $22 million, and break it up among all your athletes, theoretically, their Title IX could force you to pay the female athletes as much as the male athletes. So Dellinger says, for now, questions linger. In whatever new model, will universities share enough with football and basketball players? How exactly is the revenue share cap determined? And how much will the cap change? Yeah, all very pertinent questions, as has kind of been outlined in the first part of this. Let me pop in and take a super chat here if you have one. I still have more of this article to get to, but if you have a super chat here, probably about your 10-minute warning on the show. So not totally buzzer beater time, but starting to work our way there. We're like midway through the fourth quarter here. Click the $ below the chat box in order to submit your donation, make it a super chat, and ensure that you get on the show here tonight. Appreciate all of you who support the channel in that way. Could not do it without you. Also, just like the video. Easy way to support. We've got 200 people in here now. If you can just like the video, a lot of new people have showed up since the last time I told you this. One click, totally free, easy way to support the channel. Keep the comments coming, whether it's below the video, whether it's in the live comment section right now. That stuff also really does help. So thank you. Stash 4 again on Venmo. If you're not watching live, you can leave a question or comment there, and I will get to it on the next show. Aloha Nate. What's up, Nate? Aloha Nate 2004. How can schools share revenue when a lot of them still accept state funds? Even Big Ten schools take state and university funds. Well, so a big part of this, I may have cut some of that out because there was so much in this article. I tried to trim some of the fat on it. But this is all the revenue that is coming in from, it's like TV contracts, like radio and TV agreements. There were like 4 things: ticket sales. So I guess I'm a little out over my skis on that, but they would not be sharing, at least. Maybe this isn't what you're asking, but I'm making the point that they would not be sharing any kind of state funding that's coming in. This is going to be purely revenue made off of athletics that would be shared. And a lot of the dispute here, I was listening to the Yahoo College Football podcast, the Yahoo Inquirer, which is a great podcast. And Dellinger was talking about all this, how there is a lot of debate now about what should be included in that total revenue number. Because for right now, at least on the college side of things, they are not including donations in that. Well, donations is a huge piece of the actual revenue that comes into college athletics every year to these athletic departments. But they're making the argument like, well, one, that's not something we can like set our watch to. That's not like a contract where they have to pay that money every year. So we can't just count on what that's going to be or how much it's going to be or whatever. And I guess that's really like the main argument. They're saying, so like, we don't want that included. So as of right now, at least in their calculations, it is not. So there's a lot of dispute over what comes in there and what doesn't. But I do know that it would not be like the state funds that are being touched here in terms of the revenue distribution. So that's the best answer I can give you, at least on this, Nate. I'm not sure that I hope that I'm covering kind of what you're talking about there, but that is in fact, maybe it's in I feel like maybe I did read it earlier. Was it right there? Was it just about to come up? Where did that go? Yeah, here you go. Okay. Aloha Nate, this is perfect. As part of the evolving settlement negotiations, the cap is determined as 22% of a formula of power conference school revenue streams that are commercially generated. There you go. So that's they're taking commercially generated revenue streams and distributing that. The most significant of these streams are 1, TV contracts; 2, ticket sales; 3, sponsorship and licensing; and 4, game day sales, as well as other less significant buckets. So then if you chop it all up, if you add that together, those streams generated $4.7 billion in revenue last year for these athletic departments. That would come out to $85.2 million per school. Then you take 22% of that number, it comes out to $19 million per school, presumably earmarked for athlete revenue sharing. But he does point out those figures are unlikely to perfectly match a new model's final figures, but the results at least give outsiders an idea of the financials. The figures are sure to change. College football, responsible for a majority of the revenue figures, is in the midst of one of its most profitable and popular eras in history. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. I hope that helps, Aloha Nate, and I appreciate your support of the channel very, very much, my friend. David, what's up, David? David says, I don't know how NIL can be regulated. NFL players have contracts and NIL sponsorship income. NIL does fall under Title IX. Regulation with NIL, a lot of that could be like, if you're going to sign actual contracts, you would have to be collectively bargaining this. There was something that even came out this week. I have the tweet on that. Pete Thamel said, I guess he retweeted, it was Pete Nakos from On3, who had the College Football Players Association supports a collective bargaining model without employment. So they are talking about collectively bargaining here, but they also don't want to, apparently the Players Association does not want them to be employees. The statement says, we at the College Football Players Association believe the current players should be able to choose to fight the battle for formal employment and collective bargaining if that is the battle they want to fight, as was the case with the Dartmouth basketball players. But increasingly, as we talk with current athletes on multiple football programs around the country, there does not seem to be an appetite for these types of legal battles over formal employment, unionization, and collective bargaining. As such, at the College Football Players Association, we have begun thinking about what a new model of collective bargaining might look like, a hybrid option that stops short of full employee classification for college athletes, but that gives athletes numerous protections and the ability to collectively bargain with schools and conferences. So that might be the type of thing that could at least put some kind of regulation on NIL if they're at least doing that, even if they're not going like full bore all the way in. So I don't know, David. We shall see, but I know that's obviously something a lot of people want. I would imagine there would be something involved there. I mean, they were talking about with the revenue sharing that could cut down on the amount of money that some of these players are getting because of the Title IX stuff that you were talking about there. So I think there's a lot to be sorted out as far as what that looks like in finality. David clarifying says does not fall under Title IX. And David says, appreciate you, David, says donations can come with guidelines, i.e. for a new practice facility. Yes. But of course, no one's doing practice facilities anymore these days. Like all donation, you want everything in your NIL coffers, man. You got to make sure you got the NIL funds more so than the facilities. But thank you, David. Thank you for your support of the channel today, as always, my friend. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Cat fan at Huskerland, aka Daniel Osborne. Great to see you here. Daniel says, came in late, we'll watch later. Also, the Sandman got me on Sunday. Hey, no problem, man. No problem. I understand that. Sandman comes for all of us. Sporting KC and Union Omaha are tied. Wait, Omaha they have an MLS team? I did not know that. My two favorite soccer teams. The new college world makes me nervous, man. Me and you both, Daniel. I was talking today. I mean, obviously, if you're a K-State fan, you guys know like it has not been a super fun like last week or so in the transfer portal for K-State. And so I was talking to my buddy Cole Manbeck, who does the 3 Mod podcast with me last night. And I was sitting there like, man, so much of this feels more stressful to me because I feel like every opportunity, like I said earlier, fall 25 could be when all this revenue sharing stuff is in place. This could literally be like the last year where it's at least still like somewhat recognizable to what we know. It's in this world where you feel like you still have, at least in basketball, an equal chance to everybody. And so I'm like, it just always feels like the stakes are so damn high because this may be going away and this may be like your last real shot at it. And so it changes how you perceive even just like wins and losses and things that happen in the portal to your team because there's so much stress about ultimate survival in this sport, the way that everything is going and just still being a part of major college athletics. So I 100% agree with you on that. I could not agree more. It definitely changes the lens through which I view anything that happens to my individual team these days, just because of the current circumstances that we are in. So I feel you, Daniel. Thank you for being here and your support of the channel. As always, much love to you and your family. Thank you, sir. Okay, let's finish it off here. It is buzzer beater time. If you've got something, now is the time. Click the $ below the chat box to submit a donation. Get your super chat in there if you have something, because we have just a little bit left of this Ross Dellinger story that I want to get to you. According to those briefed on the revenue share concept, a look-in provision potentially triggered every third year will result in a reevaluation of the cap to reflect those soaring numbers. So the look-in provision that we talked about earlier would happen every 3 years. Every 3 years, they could peek in and say, hey, do we need to raise this? Should we be getting more money? How much are you guys taking in? Let's continue to get that percentage and let that number go up and up. Dellinger says, though, there is more to the story. There are items exempt from the formula, such as donations. Donor gifts have traditionally generated more revenue than any other stream within a major college athletic department. In an analysis of the public school financial figures, donations account for $2.04 billion, eclipsing revenue streams from TV deals at $1.89 billion. So all the money that we see out there from the TV deals, the Fox, the massive, massive Fox deal, that is actually less, $1.89 billion, than the $2.04 billion that is out there from donations. So the donors are still bringing it strong in college athletics, as always. Close off here. Dellinger asked the question, will it be enough? And here's a quote from the director of the College Players Association, Ramogi Huma. Quote, it's difficult to look at a settlement as a tool for a complete model. You look at how something can be settled in this environment. There are a lot of different pieces. I just don't have faith that the NCAA and schools will come up with a model that is practical. Any model will be nibbling around the edges. So, yeah, Players Association guy thinks that they'll be cutting corners. That's basically what it is. Like, the NCAA is going to be cutting corners here on this. We don't totally trust it. We'll see. See how it all shakes out. We're going to continue to get updates like that, and I'll try to break it down, make it as digestible as possible for all of you. To me, perhaps the biggest takeaway from all of that was could be up to 25 mil, and that could be in place by fall 2025, which could dramatically alter how we're viewing things as Big 12 fans. For those of us like myself that are fans of Big 12 schools, you could see a real big split once that comes around. All right, Daniel. Oh, Omaha team is not in MLS. They are playing in the U.S. Open tournament. All right, well, that's where look. I'm a rube when it comes to the football, the soccer. I don't know enough, so thank you for educating me there on that. That'd be cool if Omaha had an MLS team. But yeah, hopefully Sporting gets it done. I do like me some Sporting KC. Shout out to the KC Current as well. Got a lot of good soccer being played right now in Kansas City. So thank you, Daniel. Thank you for the clarification there. Aloha Nate, 2004. What's up, Aloha Nate? Ohio State has tons of money, lots of NIL. They've won nothing. No national championships the last 10 years. Look, I'm not going to stop you at all, Nate, from a little Ohio State smack. They are not my favorite. Shout out to Will Howard. I hope Will Howard does well this year for the Buckeyes, but not a huge Ohio State fan. And the time that they won the national championship, they shouldn't have even been in, because that was the Baylor TCU year where, I mean, I don't care how it finished. Based on merit at the time, one of those Big 12 schools should have actually been in. I wonder how do we think Brett Yormark would have handled that? Like the one true champion thing and never really making a great decision, because Yormark is such a great marketer, but at the same time, they've also been bad at things like the tiebreakers and like stuff that is more like the minutia of running a conference. That's a good hypothetical. Maybe that's a video sometime. How would Brett Yormark have handled that? The one true champion year with TCU and Baylor, where they kind of kept each other out of the college football playoff. Anyway, yeah, it doesn't guarantee. Look, Texas has been a better example of that than Ohio State too, and what they've squandered with all their money and resources. Hell, Texas A&M. I mean, if we're talking about schools with gobs and gobs of money that continuously underachieve, Texas A&M belongs in that category too. So, got a lot of schools that we could throw under the bus there, but Aloha Nate, I will not stop you certainly from doing Ohio State. I don't know where Wolf 58 is at tonight, but Wolf 58, I'm just telling you, Aloha Nate is out here coming at you. And maybe Justin too. Let's see, Justin, the king of smack talk around here and the king of the buzzer beater. Justin says Ohio State will need all the NIL help they can get. January will be 10 years since they last beat an SEC team. Woo! Yormark would have made them play a game. Okay. Play an extra. Well, that was 2014. So we weren't doing a conference championship game. Set up an impromptu conference championship game. Honestly, they already changed the tiebreaker rules like mid-season. Couldn't you just set up a game then? Sure, why not? We'll set up a game. I like it, Justin. That would very much be on brand based on how the Big 12 handled those tiebreaker rules in the middle of the season last year. Good stuff, Justin. Good stuff. And Aloha Nate. Everybody, David, Daniel. Now I started naming everyone. I'm going to make sure I name everyone who commented. Justin, David, Daniel, Justin, David, Daniel. The 827. The 827 as well tonight. Thank you all you guys for hanging out tonight. Fun show. Please do click the like button on your way out the door. Would much appreciate that. Spread the word. Tell your friends, family on social media, word of mouth, Twitter, X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, wherever you're at on social media. Let them know about the channel. Let's continue to grow this audience. I much appreciate all of you who do. Wonderful to see the support, as always, from all of you guys. So, with all of that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your week, a great rest of your Wednesday night. And how about I check in with you on Sunday? Make sure you watch for the videos coming out over the next 2 days with Doug Rohan, attorney at law based out of Atlanta, Georgia. He has been following meticulously this Florida State case. He's got a lot of great insight on both that and the Clemson case. They are really interesting videos. If you have any interest at all on what's going on between the ACC and Florida State and Clemson, make sure you check those out. All right, take care, guys. I will talk to you soon.